our Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, and Multiculturalism, the Honourable Jason Kenney.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aubrey, worthy rabbis, reverend clergy, Your Excellency Consul General, elected colleagues, including my colleague Mark Adler, MP for York Centre, and Monty Quinter, MPP, and all the city councillors, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Canadians. We are all so fortunate to live in this country, this champion of human dignity, of human rights, of peace, of respect, and protection for the vulnerable. And speaking of our tradition of protection for the vulnerable, my dear friend Frank Dement was absolutely right when he began his remarks reminding us of the terrible tragedy of Canada having closed its doors to the European Jewish refugees in the 1930s and 40s, fleeing the greatest crime of human history, the Holocaust. We, as a government, on behalf of Canadians, have sought, in some symbolic way, to recognize and make amends for that time when our hearts and our doors were closed to those who needed our hospitality and our protection the most. But Canada, I would say, has in many ways redeemed itself because following the war, following the Second World War, we opened our doors and we welcomed, after Israel and the United States, the largest number of Holocaust survivors of any country in the world. And in so doing, we recognized our highest calling as a country, as a champion of human dignity. Now I would like to invite, as I begin tonight, all of those who are in our midst, who are Holocaust survivors or their children or grandchildren, to please rise and be recognized. We honor you, and most importantly, we honor the sacred memory of the members of your families who did not survive. And ladies and gentlemen, those who just rose are a living testament to why Canada and the Canadian people stand side by side with the Jewish democratic homeland of Israel, because it is the guarantor that there will always be a future for the Jewish people, notwithstanding the ancient and pernicious hatred of anti-Semitism. We must, as human beings, always stand side by side those who throughout the century have been victims of persecution, of pogroms, of hatred, and of genocide, who continue to be targeted by that hatred, and including by the genocidal plans of people like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. We say, as Canadians, to our Jewish friends both here and around the world, that we stand in solidarity with you. I mean we as Canadians, and when I look around this room, I am so proud as Canada's Minister of Citizenship, Immigration, and Multiculturalism to see this amazing multicultural gathering in solidarity with our Jewish friends around us. Now I'd like to ask all of you, everyone in this hall, who chose to make Canada your homeland, who chose to come to Canada as a land of equality, everyone who immigrated to Canada, please stand up and let's see. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Isn't that something? Wow. What an inspiration. What a country of generosity. What a country of opportunity. What a country of human dignity that we are. And so to our Jewish friends here tonight, you can see it's not just Canada standing with you, it's the world right here. And I just want to say to each of you who chose Canada, thank you. Thank you for helping us to build this great land of opportunity. Thank you for helping us to realize our special place as a land of opportunity. And thank you for caring for others. Thank you for caring for the underdogs of history. Because it was Israel that was born out of the ashes of the Holocaust. And let us not forget. Now, Israel's enemies don't like us mentioning that essential fact, but it can never be forgotten. It can never be forgotten that the people who stumbled out of Auschwitz and Birkenau and Treblinka and Terezin and all of the other camps had hope, because from 1948 they had a homeland that has not always been secure, a homeland that struggles in an existential struggle every single day, but a homeland that is an eternal symbol of hope and peace and security for a people that has known too little of peace and security through its history. And that is why Prime Minister Harper and the Government of Canada stand in defense of the right of a Jewish homeland to exist as a democracy that respects and promotes human rights. Let us not forget, because this is a multicultural and multi-faith gathering, let us not forget that there is one place in the Middle East where Jews can safely worship their God and practice their faith in full safety and protection. There is only one place where religious minorities can do the same thing, and it's also a country, where those of the Muslim faith can practice freely their faith without fear or persecution. It is a land of freedom. It is a land that protects freedom of conscience, that is founded on a belief in human dignity. And let me say, for example, it is the only place in the Middle East where gays and lesbians can live in peace and not be afraid of execution or violent persecution. It is the only land in the Middle East that has a complete system of the rule of law and the protection of minority rights. And that's why Canadians of all different backgrounds have an interest in understanding the issues that are at stake. Now, like you do, you understand that the enemies of Israel are not interested in a normal, conventional, negotiated peace settlement. They are interested, and they say so explicitly, in the annihilation of what they call the Zionist entity, in the annihilation of Israel as a Jewish democratic state. Their interest, the Hamas that controls the Gaza Strip, they're not interested in peace. They're not interested in coexistence with Israel. They send Qassam missiles indiscriminately into Israel to target and kill innocent civilians. Hezbollah is not interested in peace or coexistence with the Jewish democratic state. What do? They send Katyusha rockets indiscriminately into attack and kill Israelis for the sole crime of being Jews. Iran, led by Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and let there be no mistake, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and the other current leadership in Tehran do not represent the best values or the true aspirations of the great Persian people, but in that dictatorship, they don't seek peace and coexistence in the Middle East with a democratic Jewish state. They seek the annihilation of Israel as they continue to plan their Shahab missiles and their nuclear program, which Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has said explicitly and repeatedly will be used to destroy the Jewish state as human beings as Canadians, as people of different faiths and different backgrounds, we tonight declare to those purveyors of hatred and violence like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, to Hezbollah, and to Hamas, that the civilized world will never allow them to do to the Jewish people what the Nazis did to the Jewish people in the 1930s. Voices in our own midst who seek constantly to delegitimize, to stigmatize, to sow hatred against the Jewish homeland, to succeed in doing so. Now, I am pleased to tell you that tomorrow night in Ottawa, my colleague, the Honourable John Baird, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I will sign what is called the Ottawa Protocol, formally expressing Canada's agreement with a protocol that was agreed to by parliamentarians from 54 different countries, condemning all forms of anti-Semitism, including those forms of anti-Semitism which seek to scapegoat the Jewish people by scapegoating and singling out for hatred the Jewish state of Israel. We will condemn that form of promotion of hatred on behalf of all Canadians tomorrow night. And on Wednesday, I will travel to New York to speak on behalf of the Government of Canada at a conference where we will once again add Canada's voice to the condemnation of the tainted and racist Durban process which began 10 years ago, scapegoating the Jewish people of the Jewish state for hatred. We will condemn it again. To belong to a government which was the first in the world to withdraw from the tainted UN Durban II process and take the Durban III process, the first one in the world. But shortly after, some countries will commemorate the Durban Hate Fest. A motion will apparently be presented at the United Nations General Assembly. A motion that will undermine the legitimate peace process. Canada believes in peace. We want all of the parties to the dispute in the Middle East to have a negotiated settlement that recognizes the need for security and their legitimate aspirations. And we recognize there is a need for the expression of legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and the need for a secure, democratic Jewish state. And we encourage all leaders to pursue the path of peace, not to inflate expectations, and not to pursue strategies which in fact will be counterproductive. And that is why the Government of Canada will vote against that motion next week at the United Nations. Thank you to each and every one of you as Canadians for coming and adding and expressing your voice, for expressing your freedom of expression and freedom of conscience here tonight. We appreciate your voice, your conscience, and together let us stand side by side in the defense of democratic principles. God bless you. God bless Canada.